right. My name is Liz Levine, and I'm in the Development Department at SAIS. I'm here with Betsy Carter from the class of 1963 at SAIS. Today is Thursday, April 11th, 2013. So, Betsy, first I'd like to ask you what brought you to SAIS.
Well, when I was in college, I was always going to major in science, but then I realized at the end of my sophomore year that I was more interested in the social sciences, and I wound up in the government department. And after my my sophomore year, I went to Africa on a work camp, and that really got me interested in international affairs. I also went to the former Soviet Union as a 19-year-old, and I got very interested in the problems of the Cold War and the Soviet Union and its effect on its people and also Eastern Europe. And so the combination of going to Africa and seeing the development needs and traveling all over Europe and the Soviet Union got me interested in international affairs. And I decided I wanted to spend my career in international affairs. So I applied to SAIS, and fortunately I was accepted.
Great. Could you tell us about your time at SAIS and what you remember most fondly, perhaps any courses or professors or just any interesting stories from your time there?
Well, one very interesting thing was that we were there at the time of the Cuban Missile Crisis, and professors from the Latin American Studies area were advising President Kennedy at the time. So we felt like we were really part of what was going on. Very, very important time. It was scary too. I like the smallness of SAIS. I went to a women's college, which was relatively small, but still this was even smaller, and I liked that. I liked the small classes, and you really got to know your classmates. It was very, very rewarding.
Is there anything else you'd like to share about your time at SAIS?
Well, some of the classes I had were not as rigorous as I think I'd had at my undergraduate at Smith College. And one course I felt the papers I had to write were producing the next chapters in the professor's book, which I didn't appreciate at all. And I was forced to take his course because I was in African studies, but anyway. I think one of the most valuable courses was one that I think it was created the year I went, called The United States in a Changing World Environment, which we nicknamed The Wide, Wide World. But every class was sort of on a different subject, and you really got a feel for all the major issues of the time, and could then think about how you'd like to play a part in what was going on in the world.
That's great. And could you tell us about what you've done since then, and a little bit about your career path since SAIS?
I was in African studies, and I first I wanted to live in New York, and I worked for a year for a consulting firm working on USAID contracts concerning Africa. And then later on, I wound up working on the Soviet Union. But after a year, they sort of ran out of contracts, and I was able to get a job with USAID in India. And I worked there for a couple of years. Well, my whole career was in AID after that. And I worked in Vietnam, and then I came back to Washington and joined the civil service, and I had a wonderful time. I worked in sort of policy planning program area. I worked on Latin America. I worked in overall policy planning. I worked for the person who was in charge of all the global programs in AID. I worked on agriculture, and my the end of my career, I worked on Eastern Europe after the fall of the Berlin Wall, which was fascinating. Um, and so I had a variety of different kinds of jobs, and I liked that very much. So it was a wonderful career.
Great. Can you talk about how SAIS influenced your career?
Well, I mean, SAIS, what could be a better place to learn about the world than at SAIS, and to have professors who were actually practicing their trade teach us courses. To me, there couldn't be a better place to study international affairs than Washington, and have professors who both taught here full-time and others who were in various departments of the government who taught here part-time and could therefore give us a practical point of view.
Do you have any advice for today's students?
Well, I think SAIS is much more specialized than when I was there, which is good in a way. I had some economics, but wish I'd had more, but I could have had a lot more now. I think it's a very good school now, and I'm not sure what I'd improve on. It's very specialized, but yet I still think you can get a broad view if you want.
Is there anything else you'd like to add to your oral history, or anything else you'd like to share about your time at SAIS?
As I said, I like the small school, and you had access to your professors, which was very good. And there was an ability to exchange information with other students. We had a lot of lectures from outside, which was fascinating. I remember Dean Atchison from the State Department as one person. It was just a terrific experience.
Great. Well, thank you very much.